for joining us. I'm Farley Lewis here in my studio. We're going to be painting a mountain scene from Juneau, Alaska that I took several years ago, a photograph I took, and we'll be painting from it. And so we're going to be covering the 4 rules of atmospheric perspective, how to make things appear like they're going back in space. It's a lot of fun. Not as hard as you think. So hope you can join us. Hope you paint along. Thanks so much for joining me. You can see this picture I took in Juneau, Alaska, and that's practically right in the middle of town, believe it or not. But we're going to be painting it over the top of a demo I did for a workshop of a autumn scene on a road, and so it's just kind of fun to do different things, try new things. So I'm painting one painting right over the top of another one. It's kind of a fun challenge. We got a really light sky, and it's just got the teal and white, might be even a little tiny bit of yellow in it. So I'm going to try to do this without drawing it out a lot. And as it gets closer, it gets darker and a little bit more red in it. But so this is the same as that. It's snow and shadow, but it's at least a full step darker than that and definitely more red in it. So the illusion of depth is created when we understand the rules of perspective. So let me enumerate those. As things go back in space, they get lighter in value. That's 1. Number 2, they get cooler in temperature. That's 2. Number 3, they get less saturated as they go back. That means the colors are not as saturated, they're more grayed out. And then the 4th is that the edges get softer. Now there's an exception to the first one. Whenever I say things get lighter, they actually don't always get lighter. They get closer to the color of the air is really what's happening. So if your air color is a value of 3, it's that pinky purple periwinkle kind of color. If that's the color of the air you're dealing with, then everything gets closer to that color. So that means that if you have a white house really far away, it actually gets barely darker instead of lighter. Now there's another thing that I'm going to do here is I want to keep this side of this dark block light because it's going to go darker as it gets closer to me. Okay, so now as I come down, I'm going to start adding my transparent red iron oxide to warm that darker color up. So now I've got a warmer version of this purple color. So you can see that kind of has that feel of space, doesn't it? Now when I mix green, I don't ever start with green because then I'm working away from saturated green instead of toward a more saturated green, and it fakes me out. I'd just rather start with anything other than green. Now there's a darker mass that's in the shadows here. Again, I can't go all the way to a 9. I got to stay in a 7 to 8 range, but I want it to look distinctly darker. I think my overall hillside is barely too dark, honestly. It looks pretty blue. I'm just going to try this and see if it flies. I do notice that as it gets over here on this far edge, it does get darker and a little bit more of that reddish, of the quinacridone red in it. To make that look legit, that water, I need to put a dark edge on it probably. Let me try that. These areas of where I've just painted water. Picture water up against a slightly dry, muddy bank, but right up against the water, it's not dry. So that means it's darker because it's wet. Wet mud is just a little bit darker than dry mud. Let's try this color here. I'm almost done with this. I'm going to soften something up here. Thank you for joining us. We had a lot of fun with this mountain, didn't we? These mountains and this river going through, just had a lot of fun. This is almost downtown Juneau, Alaska, believe it or not. Didn't paint the eagles in, but they were there. We had fun painting, so thanks again for joining. Hey, I hope you enjoyed those rules of perspective in this, some of those tips we gave you. If you want the full video, click on that link below.